Hi and welcome to a new episode on my Joysway Rocket 26 brushless deep V race boat. Today I'm gonna talk about CG and the modifications I did to reach optimum CG, and at the end of the video you will see a short test run with the new CG. The reason why I tried out the new CG is that I got some inputs on RC groups that my CG looks like it's too far in the front and the boat runs a bit wet. So I decided to do some tries on the boat to get a better CG to put it more in the backside. So for this, now let's have a look into the hull. So this is the current setup of my electronics. The battery sits in here, more or less in the center of the hull. The biggest difference what I did is that I moved the CG from the stock position, which is in the front end of the canopy, to the back end as far as possible to still make it possible to put back on the canopy. The stock CG, or the CG I had before the modifications, was more or less at the center of the hull, which is really way too far in the front. And now the CG is at around 33% measured from the back end of the hull. And as you can see later in the video, the boat runs pretty well like this. The other changes I did is that I removed the stock mount of the ESC, which was also at the center of the hull. And I removed the stock mount of the servo. The position of the servo is around this area here, and I moved it back to this place. I also had to do this because of the ESC. If I stay with the servo at the stock place, it wouldn't be possible to install the ESC at this place. To mount the servo directly on the bottom of the hull, I used some UU-POR. The servo sits perfectly and cannot move at all. So this is a simple and lightweight installation of the servo. Because of the new position of the ESC, I was also able to reduce the length of some cooling tubes. I checked all the parts I removed, and the weight I was able to reduce is around 10 grams. That's not a big deal, but in my opinion every gram counts, and so 10 grams less is not a bad thing too. During the test run I had one issue, and this is the mount of the flex drive. I don't know if you can see it. If I spin the motor, the flex shaft is wobbling a bit around. This is because of two things. One is that the gap between the motor coupler and the flex shaft tube is pretty big. And the second point is that the flex shaft tube isn't mounted on the front end of the tube. It's only fixed at the rear end in the hull, but not on the motor and ESC mount at the front end of the tube. So I'm gonna go for two modifications to improve this situation. One is that I will do a mount, an additional mount for the tube at the front end of the tube. And the second modification is that I will install a mount including a ball bearing which keeps the flex shaft perfectly centered. Like this, it shouldn't be able for the shaft and the tube to move around anymore. And like this I can avoid vibrations, I can avoid damage my flex shaft, and the performance of the boat should be better like this. The reason for these issues is for sure that I run it on 4S. It's meant to run on 3S batteries, and I run it on 4S LiPo, so there is way more RPM on the drivetrain. And I also have a little higher RPM motor which runs on 3800 kV. So this extreme high RPM cannot be handled with the stock installation of the tube and the flex shaft. So I will do these modifications and will come up soon with more test run videos. Now let's have a look at some test run footage of today's test run with new CG. Thanks for watching. Have a good time. Bye bye.
Oh,